Hi everyone, I'm going to be presenting on systemic lupus erythematosus. There are different types of lupus. The one I'm presenting on, systemic lupus erythematosus, affects multiple systems throughout the body, and then chronic discoid lupus erythematosus affects only the skin. However, 10% of those cases do develop into SLE. As you can see from the chart, chronic discoid lupus is chronic, obviously. It's slow healing under therapy, but it doesn't have any effect on their overall life. And then SLE, which is systemic lupus erythematosus, is an acute onset. You may have fever, rash, fatigue, joint pains, and they need to be treated quickly with steroids or different types of therapy. And then it affects a lot of different aspects of their lives. Both are attributed with skin lesions, like red, scaly, thickened patches. Both have this butterfly type rash, which I'll show you later in the presentation. With chronic discoid, it might not be symmetrical, and then with systemic, it usually is symmetrical. There's one more type of lupus. It's drug-induced, and it's just with different types of drugs, then symptoms of lupus may progress. So the etiology of lupus is that it's an autoimmune disease. It's a type 3 hypersensitivity reaction caused by an autoantibody production. This is characterized by the development of antibodies against nuclear antigens such as DNA, RNA, and to red blood cells, neutrophils, platelets, lymphocytes, and other organs and tissues. It creates an inflammatory response between the antigens and the antibodies, which can create cell damage throughout the entire body. There's no known cause of what is making these autoantibodies produce, and they've done several studies to see if it's environmental triggers, and they can't find anything. There's no conclusive results on allergies, infections, or exposure to different agents. There has been studies to show, though, that with sunlight there could be an increased risk of a flare-up. So the incidence is 20 cases per 100,000 people in the United States. There's a peak incident between the ages of 15 and 40. It occurs more frequently in women than men, with a ratio of 7-1, and it's more common in African Americans than Caucasians. To diagnose SLE, it's challenging because a lot of the different features and signs and symptoms could be associated with other diseases, and no one test can conclusively diagnose SLE. It has to be like almost a questionnaire of signs and symptoms and then lab tests. So the lab tests that they conduct are a complete blood count. Anemia is common with SLE. A low white blood cell count or platelet count may occur in lupus, but those also occur in many other things. A urine sample is taken, and it's tested for increased protein levels or red blood cells in the urine, and this could show that the kidneys might be affected. There's also an anti-nuclear antibody test, and a positive test of these antibodies would indicate a stimulated immune system, which might lead them to believe that there is an autoimmune condition going on, and they would test for further antibodies. So the signs and symptoms: physically, the skin has that butterfly rash that covers the cheeks and the bridge of the nose, and it occurs in 26% of patients. So as you can see on her face, it's very symmetrical. It's very even on both sides, which is very characteristic of SLE. The skin lesions they appear or worsen in sun exposure, and then if the skin is swollen or red, there's scales or plaques on the scalp, ears, face, and neck. Raynaud's phenomenon, so they're in the cold, their fingers become white. Lace-like venular skin change, and alopecia, so their hair kind of starts to disappear and fall out. More signs and symptoms, so this is systemic, so it's throughout the entire body. In the skeletal system, there will be arthritis and arthroglias, which is inflammatory. Joint pain, swelling, tenderness, pain with movement, and morning stiffness, and then joint deformities from that inflammation. The cardiovascular system, there's pericarditis and valvular heart disease. Pulmonary system, pleuritis and pleural effusion. Renal system, glomerulonephritis, which is inflammation of the glomeruli in the kidneys, which can lead to renal failure. With the central nervous system, ptosis, diploma, ataxia, seizures, and psychosis are common. Confusion, headaches, memory problems, and strokes. And this can all be caused by the inflammation of the blood vessels in the brain, which also leads to fevers and behavioral changes. The treatment and medications for lupus. So this table kind of shows you, depending on the severity of the activity and flare-up, how they're going to treat it. So if it's mild, they might treat it with NSAIDs. They're going to use this Plaquenil, which is actually an anti-malarial agent, and it just helps with skin rashes, mouth ulcers, and joint pain. It decreases the antibody production and protects against the effects of UV light. This one, if it's not used in more severe cases of lupus because it might take months to fully take effect. Steroids are much faster, which is why you'll see in these later in the moderate, severe, and non-renal and renal that they turn and use steroids, which are prednisone, because they work much faster. And then the higher the dose, the faster they'll work. More medications are immunosuppressants because they control that inflammation and the overactive immune system. The downside to immunosuppressants is just like the name sounds, it suppresses your immune system, so it reduces the body's ability to fight infections. Chemotherapy drugs are commonly used. Cyclophosphamidine improves kidney and lung disease, and methotrexate treats skin lesions and improves arthritis and pleuritis. Another one, which is very specific to lupus, is a monoclonal antibody, and it's called Benlysta, and it disrupts the activation of the B lymphocytes. So this stops that antibody's production so that they're not fighting each other in the body. And it's the only approved drug to specifically treat lupus. Treatment, kind of on the, not so much the medication side, probably more our side of things, would be patient education. So we need to kind of inform them to avoid certain stimuli that might cause a flare-up to get worse, which would be sunlight and increased stress and anxiety. So we can teach stress management, different things like that. Educating them on the management of this disease and to take their medications. They have to be very specific in order to work. And then cardiovascular training has been shown to help people with lupus, and it's to improve endurance, it decreases depression, and it increases quality of life overall. With that being said, there are many psychological effects to lupus as an autoimmune disorder, not knowing when it's going to flare up, not knowing what's causing it. These people can become depressed, fatigued, psychological distress, and difficulty with emotion-oriented coping. So OT can play a huge role in this side of things. The prognosis for lupus, there is no cure, unfortunately, and they're doing tons of research to try and discover new treatment methods for the symptoms of lupus, and they're looking into the genetics of lupus to see how they can stop that antibody production and find a cure and find a way to treat this. So without treatment, if someone may not know for a while and they may not go in, they wait too long without treatment, the inflammation of the kidneys and the heart and the lungs could become more severe and eventually become life-threatening. Before medications, such as steroids and other immunosuppressants, the survival rates were less than 50% within a 5-year period of being diagnosed. Now, with treatment and with all of the knowledge that we have, the 5-year survival rate is over 95%. So the efficacy of these drugs have become very, they help a ton with these people with lupus, and the quality of life has really been increased. And that's it. Thanks for listening, guys. Have a good week.